Day 5 of the 7 days is now in the books. We're going to be starting the June 30th turn here in just a moment. McClellan has changed his base to the James, pretty much forced to make that decision. This turn was a total disaster for the Union. They couldn't win an initiative roll in the early parts of the turn when it really mattered. I would say at least 80% of the initiative rolls the CSA won. So that was a disproportionate, statistically that's disproportionate. It shouldn't see that kind of disparity. CSA is going to win ties, but good grief. It was ridiculous, and Longstreet is concentrated his corps there in Force 1, marched all the way from just above, what is that, Walnut Grove, that's what it is, Walnut Grove, marched all the way from there. Once the Union Army began to contract, made use of the roads to get around into, across the Chickahominy now and into the rear, destroyed one of the two wagon trains of the Union. And so at this point, the Union's chances of victory are virtually nil. It's just a question of how big of a defeat they're going to suffer at this point. And man, they are in trouble. Just positionally, they're in a terrible, terrible position. Stuart's victory with the cavalry really was what cracked this open, and Stuart was able to hold Porter's corps, I forget which division that is, Seymour's division, or brigade rather, I think that's a brigade. Yeah, Seymour's brigade held him off just long enough for Longstreet to make that move. D.H. Hill pushed his advantage in as much as he could, so the bridgeheads are getting squeezed by the Union, and the Union cavalry is completely annihilated north of the Chickahominy. There's no cavalry left. Only one more cavalry regiment over on the south side of the Chickahominy that's in a position to fight. There is a disordered cavalry regiment in Force 6, not able to do a whole lot. There is a concentration of artillery here, but McCall's division is very weak. It's only 8 strength points. Not enough artillery, but they're in the woods, so that's not going to make a huge difference. It's difficult to reinforce McCall because of the loss of this particular crossroads. This particular crossroads here is actually vital to the Union line. There's no way to get somebody to him without cutting overland, and it's just slow going. Anything the Union does, the Confederacy seems to be able to respond to it. Options for counterattacks. There is room for counterattacking, I suppose, north of the Chickahominy as a desperation measure, but it doesn't really solve the problem. They need to get all of these guys across the Chickahominy and try to restore order down here, or they're going to be cut off from their base. The entire Union Army could be destroyed here. This is really what Lee was attempting to do historically, but was unable to do so. I guess in game terms, historically, he couldn't win his initiative rolls, and he rolled poor on movement at critical junctures. And that's somewhat of what we've encountered in the first couple of turns, last turn being a major exception. Longstreet's force activated 3 times, and I think they rolled 5s and 6s on all of their movements. So they covered a lot of ground really fast. Got a couple restored divisions here, Ewell and Garland's divisions from Jackson and D.H. Hill, respectively. They have recovered from their earlier defeats 2 days ago, and they are able now to reinforce. So the bottom line is Confederacy has reserves. The Union has 0 reserves in position. They might get another brigade. We got to roll for it. Die roll of 1 or 2, they get a reinforcement brigade of 8 strength points, which are sorely needed. If they could get one more in, they could start marching Ferry's brigade up to try to, provide some kind of security here on that flank. If the Confederacy is able to exploit their advantage in their bridgehead, I didn't dare do anything else with Longstreet. I want to keep him in that strong position. The marshes here are uncrossable. So really all they got to worry about is somebody coming around this way and cutting him off from the bridgehead, which McCall could do in theory, but he's too weak to attempt that and potentially survive. He could be destroyed up against the river by Longstreet's force. So the Union needs to prevent the Confederacy from exploiting their advantage of having the railroad bridge and the road bridge over the Chickahominy, the loss of those two bridges is just catastrophic. So it would be really great if they could get some reinforcements, the Union could get some reinforcements down here and try to burn those bridges. That would be, that would give them a great chance to salvage something of this really, really dire situation. So that is the end of, like I said, day 5. It's been a rough day. We're going to go into day